I never imagined peace would come wrapped in the aftermath of a relapse. For years I ran from myself, from the noise in my head, the cravings that swallowed whole days, and the wreckage I left behind. Recovery wasn't a straight path for me. It twisted, it burned, it lied. And just when I thought I was doing better, clean for 9 months, showing up, breathing again, I fell hard. That night, chaos returned like an old friend with bad intentions. I woke up on the floor of someone else's apartment, not sure how I got there, my phone buzzing with missed calls, and the sour taste of failure in my mouth. I wanted to disappear. But something inside me, maybe the last untouched part of me, whispered, "Not like this." So I started again. Day 1. Then day 2. And now day 7. This is the story of that 7th day. The day the noise faded. The day I learned that even after the storm, even after you break your own heart again, there's a place you can still return to. And sometimes, that place is silence. The morning light didn't feel forgiving. It felt like judgment, sliding through the broken blinds in thin, sharp lines. My mouth was dry. My body ached. My chest held a quiet panic, a low-level alarm that hadn't shut off since the relapse. I sat up slowly on the edge of the bed, feeling like an intruder in my own skin. 7 days. That's what I had. 7 days clean. Again. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even tell anyone. I just counted the hours and tried to survive inside them. I stayed off social media. Didn't reply to texts. I couldn't face the people who told me how proud they were. Not yet. There's a kind of loneliness that only exists in early sobriety. It's not just being alone, it's being alone with your truth. With the memories of everything you've ruined. Everything you've lost. And yet, this morning felt different. I didn't hear the voices, the ones that usually tell me I'm worthless, that I'll never make it, that I might as well use again because I'll just fail later. They were quiet. Not gone. But quieter. I got up, walked to the bathroom, and stared at myself. My eyes looked tired but clearer. My face was leaner than I remembered. There was something in my reflection I hadn't seen in a while, not hope, exactly. Maybe just presence. I was here. I made coffee. Sat by the window. Watched people walking their dogs, kids chasing each other, life continuing without apology. And for a moment, a real, breathing moment, I didn't want to escape. I didn't want to numb. I just existed. And that was enough. The thing about being sober for a few days is that your body starts remembering things you wish it would forget. The shakes. The nausea. The sweat that feels cold even though your skin burns. That morning, I thought I was past the worst. I'd eaten a full meal the day before. Slept for almost 6 hours. But around 10 a.m., the wave hit. It started with the restlessness, that crawling sensation under the skin, like your muscles want to scream but don't know how. I tried to distract myself. I put on a playlist, opened a book, even considered going for a walk. But none of it worked. I sat on the floor of my apartment, breathing like I'd just run miles. My hands wouldn't stay still. My sponsor used to say, "Feelings won't kill you, but they'll try to convince you they can." That's exactly what withdrawal does, it lies. It tells you the only way out is to go back in. That a little hit, just a little, will fix it. But I've followed that lie before, and it never ends with relief. It ends with regret. I reached for my phone. Not to call anyone. Just to hold on to something real. Something grounding. I opened the Notes app. There was a list I'd made early in recovery. Reasons to stay sober. I hadn't updated it in months, but it was still there. My sister's laugh. Sunrises I can actually watch. Making it to 30. Music that feels like truth. The way coffee tastes after a night of sleep. Not hating myself in the mirror. I read the list out loud. Then again. Then again. My voice cracked. My stomach twisted. But I didn't use. I got on the floor, curled up in a blanket, and just let it pass. I shook. I cried. I hated everything. But I didn't use. When the wave finally broke, when the nausea eased and the panic receded, there was a silence in its place. Not peace. Not yet. But quiet. The kind of quiet you notice only after chaos. And in that stillness I whispered, "I'm still here." Not proud. Not fixed. Just here. And that had to be enough. Sobriety is strange. It brings clarity, yes, but sometimes it also brings ghosts. I thought getting clean meant silence, but the truth is, it makes the past louder. With nothing to numb it, everything echoes louder in your head. Mistakes. Regrets. Words you wish you could take back. Faces you miss. Voices you buried. That third morning, I heard my mother's voice. Not like a hallucination, more like a memory crawling up from deep storage. I was brushing my teeth, trying to not look at myself too hard in the mirror, when suddenly, I heard it in my mind clear as day. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying." It stopped me. Froze me mid-motion. I hadn't thought about that moment in years. Her sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, after I'd failed yet another class in high school. I was already using by then. Not daily. But enough to build a wall between us. She didn't know the full story, but I think she knew something was wrong. And still, she never stopped trying to reach me. I spit, rinsed, and sat on the edge of the tub, toothbrush still in hand, heart pounding. I felt ashamed. Not just for the damage I'd done to myself, but for all the times I pushed people away. People who loved me. People I thought I didn't deserve. And maybe I didn't. But they showed up anyway. I pulled out my journal. Another list. This time. People I owe apologies to. Mom, even if she's not here anymore. My sister. James, my old roommate. Myself. That last one hurt the most. I thought about texting my sister, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't strong enough to hold her disappointment yet, even if it was wrapped in love. I knew I'd reach out. Just, not today. That day, I made myself a promise. If I couldn't fix the past, I could at least stop running from it. I could sit with it. Let it sting. Let it teach me something. Because even pain can be a kind of light. And on day 3, that flicker felt almost like hope. It's easy to pretend you're okay when you're alone. No one sees the panic when your hands start shaking. No one hears the bargaining that happens in your head. But the real test? It's in the ordinary. It's in the moments that don't look dangerous, until they are. I walked to the corner store that afternoon. Just to get coffee, maybe some bread. I hadn't really been outside much since the relapse. The sun felt wrong on my skin, like I didn't deserve it. But I went anyway, hoodie up, eyes down, pretending I was invisible. The store hadn't changed. Same fluorescent lights. Same chip tile. But something in my chest tightened the second I stepped inside. The alcohol aisle was right near the entrance. It wasn't calling to me, not exactly. But it was there. Like a dare. Like an old friend smirking in the corner. I didn't look directly at it. I walked fast, kept my head low, grabbed my coffee and left. But the craving didn't stay in the store. It followed me home. I got inside, locked the door, dropped the groceries, and just stood there, heart pounding. Not because I wanted to use, but because I almost didn't care if I did. That scared me more than anything. I sat down on the floor and did the thing my therapist taught me. I named it. I'm having a craving. Not. I am a craving. Not. I'm a failure. Just a moment. Not an identity. Then I reminded myself, cravings are liars. They make promises they never keep. They don't want you to feel better, they want you to disappear. And I've disappeared enough times to know it's not worth it. I made tea. Called a hotline. Talked to a volunteer named Marissa who didn't know me, didn't judge me, and stayed on the line until the wave passed. I didn't use. Not today. And when I finally crawled into bed that night, the craving had faded. Still there. Still lurking. But smaller. duller. And for the first time in days, I dreamed about something other than escape. I dreamed about staying. I used to hate that phrase. Just for today. It felt like a cop-out, like a cheap way to avoid facing the mountain of forever. But now I understand it. Now I cling to it. That morning I woke up early, before the alarm, before the light. My apartment was quiet, the city outside still half asleep. I lay there, eyes open, listening to the sound of my breath. Steady. Real. Still mine. I didn't scroll. I didn't check messages. I just sat up and whispered the words out loud. Just for today. Not forever. Not even the whole week. Just today, I wouldn't use. Just today, I'd try to stay present. I lit the candle on my nightstand. The same one I'd bought during a manic phase, thinking it would change the vibe. It never did, until now. The flame was small, but steady. Kind of like me. I made breakfast. Real food. Eggs, toast, fruit. It felt like a ritual. Like reclaiming something. I hadn't cooked sober in a long time. There was a stillness in the kitchen that felt earned. Later, I opened a notebook and wrote down everything I remembered about my last relapse. Not to punish myself, but to learn. The triggers. The choices. The lies I told myself. The moment I gave up. The moment I could have turned around but didn't. There was power in naming it. In putting the truth on paper instead of burying it. I didn't write to forgive myself, not yet. But I wanted to understand the wound so I wouldn't keep tearing it open. Midday, I went for a walk. Nothing special, just a loop around the block. But it felt like resistance. Like saying no to the voice that told me to hide. I noticed things, leaves changing color, a kid's laughter, a woman on her balcony dancing to music only she could hear. Life was still happening. Whether I was ready or not. When I got home, I was tired. But not the kind of tired that comes from running. This was the good kind. The earned kind. I made a cup of tea. Sat by the window. Watched the sky darken without panic. And before bed, I whispered it again. Just for today. Then I blew out the candle and closed my eyes, trusting that tomorrow would wait. By day 6, the cravings weren't as sharp, but the shame was. It crept in the quiet moments, uninvited, unwelcome, but familiar. It didn't shout. It whispered, "You're still broken. You ruined everything again. You'll never change." I tried to ignore it. I busied myself, laundry, dishes, a deep clean of the bathroom. I even organized the junk drawer. But shame isn't something you can scrub away. It clings. It waits. And eventually it finds a crack in the wall. Mine came when I found an old voicemail on my phone. From my sister. Left 3 days before the relapse. Her voice was warm. Hopeful. She said she was proud of me. Said I sounded lighter the last time we talked. Said she could feel me coming back to life. I couldn't listen to the whole thing. I deleted it halfway through. The guilt of it hit me in the chest like a punch. I hadn't told her what happened. I didn't know how. I couldn't stand the idea of watching her eyes fall, hearing the tired silence in her voice. She'd been through this with me before, too many times. Each time, it took a little more out of her. I sat on the floor of the hallway, phone still in my hand, and let it all rise. The tears. The self-loathing. The regret. I kept thinking I had one job, stay clean. One job. And I still blew it. But then I remembered something from group. A guy named Marcus once said shame is a shadow. It only grows when you don't face the light. So I pulled out my journal. I wrote down everything I was ashamed of. Every moment I let someone down. Every promise I broke. Every time I chose the high over the people who loved me. I filled 2 pages. And then, on the 3rd page, I wrote one sentence. I am not my worst day. I don't know if I believed it. But I wrote it anyway. Over and over. Until the shame felt a little less sharp. A little less final. That night, I didn't delete any more voicemails. I didn't lie to myself about who I was or what I'd done. I just sat with the truth, and tried not to run. And somehow, that felt like progress. There's a specific kind of fear that comes right before making a phone call you've been avoiding. It's not about what the other person might say, it's about what it confirms. That you messed up. That they know. That you have to say it out loud. I stared at my sister's name on the screen for nearly 20 minutes. Thumb hovering over the call button, heart pounding like a drumline in my chest. I kept imagining her voice, the long pause before she said my name, the sigh. Would she sound disappointed? Hurt? Tired of the same story? But silence wasn't helping either. The longer I waited, the more the guilt grew teeth. I had to try. Not to fix it. Just to tell the truth. I pressed call. 3 rings. 4. Then her voice. Hey. I froze for half a second. Then. Hey. It's me. She didn't say anything at first. Just waited. That was worse than yelling. I messed up, I said. Relapsed. It was bad. I'm back on day 6. I didn't know if I should tell you. I didn't want to lie anymore. The line was quiet. I could hear her breathing. Could almost picture her hand covering her mouth like she used to do when she was holding back tears. Then she spoke. Thank you for telling me. That's all she said at first. Not. It's okay. Not. I forgive you. Just thank you. And somehow, it was enough. She didn't unload pain or accusations. She didn't pretend to understand. But she stayed on the phone. She asked if I was safe. If I had support. If I'd eaten. Simple things. Grounding things. Human things. At one point I started crying, not the loud, dramatic kind. Just quiet tears, slipping out without warning. I felt 10 years old again. Ashamed. Grateful. Scared. She let me cry. Before we hung up, she said, I'm here. Just don't disappear again, okay? I promised I wouldn't. And this time, I meant it. After the call, I sat on the couch, emotionally wrecked but lighter somehow. The truth had cost something. But hiding it would have cost more. Shame wants silence. Recovery wants connection. That day, I chose connection. And I slept better than I had in weeks. By day 8, the physical symptoms had mostly passed. No more cold sweats. No more racing heart. But the mental fog lingered. My brain felt like it was underwater, slow, thick, heavy with thought. The kind of heaviness that doesn't show on the outside, but drags you down from within. I stood in front of the mirror that morning longer than usual. Not to admire anything. Just to look. To see what was left. The person staring back at me didn't look like someone 7 days clean. He looked tired. Pale. Eyes sunken, lips cracked. But there was something else there too. A kind of defiance. A quiet refusal to vanish. There were no affirmations. No pep talks. Just presence. And that, somehow, felt like a win. I got dressed slowly, deliberately. Every action felt like a ritual. Pulled the shirt over my head, laced the shoes, breathe. One step at a time. I told myself I'd leave the apartment again. Just a walk. Just a little sunlight. The air outside was colder than expected. I tucked my hands into my sleeves and headed toward the park a few blocks away. There was a bench near the edge of the path, half in shadow, half in light. I sat down and watched people move around me, joggers, dog walkers, couples holding hands. I felt like I didn't belong in any of their stories. Like I was observing life, not living it. But I was there. That counted for something. An older man sat next to me without asking. He nodded, said good morning, and that was it. We didn't speak again. He just sat there reading a newspaper, flipping pages with slow fingers. I liked that. The silence. The fact that I didn't have to perform anything, not my pain, not my recovery. I could just be. On the walk back home, I passed a liquor store. For a second, the thought hit me, not as a craving, but as a memory. Like a ghost walking by. I didn't stop. Didn't look twice. When I got home, I looked at myself again in the mirror. I still didn't see strength. But I didn't see failure either. And sometimes, the absence of self-hatred is the beginning of healing. Just for today, I could live with that. I wish I could say the quiet stayed. That once I found that stillness, it lasted. But recovery doesn't work like that. The mind doesn't heal in a straight line. And peace, for me, was never permanent. It came in flashes. Moments. Like the space between lightning and thunder. That morning started fine. I made coffee. Journaled. Did all the things I'd been told would help. And they did for a while. But around midday, the noise came back. Not from outside, from within. It was subtle at first. A sense of urgency. A familiar tightness in my chest. The kind that whispers, something's wrong. Something's missing. Then the thoughts started layering on top of each other. Fast. Loud. Messy. You're faking this. Everyone's just waiting for you to fail again. What's the point of all this anyway? You're still the same broken mess. I tried breathing through it. I tried grounding, touching objects, naming colors, counting steps. But the panic kept rising like a tide. I couldn't stop it. Couldn't think straight. My body wanted out. Out of the apartment, out of the recovery, out of me. I sat on the floor. Hands shaking. Eyes wet. And then, I did something I hadn't done since before the relapse. I prayed. Not in a religious way. Not expecting answers. I just whispered into the air, like sending a message to the universe. Please. Just help me get through this. Just this moment. Please. I don't know if anything heard me. But something shifted. Not the noise. Not yet. But me. I stopped trying to fight it. I let the panic exist without feeding it. I didn't try to fix it, or figure it out. I just let it be there. And slowly, painfully, it started to fade. I made myself a snack. Put on a stupid sitcom. Laughed once, even if it was forced. I kept breathing. I drank water. I didn't use. That was the victory. Not calm. Not clarity. Just survival. And in this journey, sometimes surviving is the miracle. One thing I never knew how to do, even before the drugs, was sit still. I don't mean physically. I mean mentally. I was always running from something. Boredom. Guilt. Silence. Myself. That 10th day, I challenged myself to do the one thing that used to terrify me: nothing. No music. No phone. No screens. Just me, a chair by the window, and time. 10 minutes. That was all I promised myself. 10 minutes to just be. At first, it was hell. My leg bounced. My mind screamed. Every thought I'd avoided came storming in like a mob. Regret. Doubt. Old conversations on loop. My greatest hits of failure. I caught myself reaching for my phone more than once, muscle memory betraying my intentions. But I didn't pick it up. Instead, I sat with the discomfort. I noticed the way my heart sped up when certain memories surfaced. The way I clenched my jaw without realizing it. The way my chest tightened whenever I thought about the future, or worse, the past. And then, something shifted. Somewhere around minute 7, the noise started to dissolve. Not all of it. But enough to hear something underneath. A kind of quiet I didn't recognize. Not the silence of loneliness. The silence of presence. I looked out the window. Really looked. Noticed the way the tree branches moved like they were breathing. Watched a pigeon land on the rail, look around, then take off again. It felt like the world had slowed just enough for me to notice I was still in it. When the timer went off, I didn't move right away. I just sat there. Breathing. Calm. Whole. And in that stillness, I realized something. Peace isn't something I have to earn. It's something I have to allow. Not every day would feel like this. I knew that. Some days I'd be a mess. Some days I'd scream. Some days I'd relapse again. I didn't know. But on day 10 I proved to myself that I could sit with reality, no filter, no escape. And that kind of honesty? That felt like healing. Some people think saying, "I'm sorry," is weakness, that it gives the other person too much power. But I've learned the opposite is true. Real apologies, the kind that come from a place of deep honesty, they take strength. And more than that, they take humility. I'd been carrying one apology for years. It was heavy. It lived in my chest like a stone. His name was James. My old roommate. My friend. Maybe the only person who ever saw me unravel in real time and tried to hold me together. I stole from him. Not money, not exactly. But trust. Time. Stability. I brought chaos into his home and left him to sweep up the pieces. And after I left, after I disappeared, I never looked back. Never called. Never explained. Just vanished into the mess. But on day 11, I found his name in my phone. Still there, buried in old contacts. And something inside me said it's time. I didn't expect a response. Honestly, I didn't expect the number to still work. But I typed out the message anyway. "Hey, it's me. I know I have no right to ask anything from you, and I understand if you never want to hear from me again. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For the way I left. For the way I treated you. I'm in recovery now. 11 days clean. 1 day at a time. I'm trying to be better. I just wanted you to know that what you did for me mattered. I never said thank you. So, thank you." I hit send and immediately felt like I couldn't breathe. My heart thudded like it wanted out of my chest. Shame is like that. It waits until you try to be honest, then shows up in full force. I left the phone across the room. Went for a walk. Tried not to think about it. Tried not to hope. When I got back, the screen was lit up. His reply was short. But it was enough. "I'm glad you're still alive." That was it. And suddenly, I felt lighter. Like maybe, just maybe, I was allowed to keep going. Maybe redemption wasn't something you got in a single act. Maybe it was something you built, one hard, honest moment at a time. And maybe that was enough for today. Day 12 brought a different kind of craving. Not for substances. Not for escape. This time, it was for connection. Real connection. Not scrolling through strangers on a screen. Not reading recovery posts looking for pieces of myself in other people's pain. I wanted someone to look at me, really look, and not flinch. But connection is tricky when you're rebuilding. There's shame. There's fear. There's the part of you that still thinks you're not worth loving sober, let alone in the messy middle of healing. I thought about texting an old friend. Someone from before it all fell apart. But I didn't. Not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know what version of me they remembered. And I didn't know what version I was now. So I went to a meeting. It wasn't something I did often. The chairs always felt too close. The coffee too bitter. But that day, I needed to hear voices other than my own. I needed proof that other people had felt this, and lived through it. I sat in the back, hood up, head down. Told myself I wouldn't share. Just listen. And then a woman spoke. Older. Calm voice, like wind over water. She said, "I used to think recovery meant becoming someone new. But it's not. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to disappear." That hit hard. I felt my throat tighten. I looked around and saw people nodding, not with pity, but with recognition. These weren't strangers. They were mirrors. When the meeting ended, I stood to leave fast. Too fast. I nearly knocked over my chair. Someone caught it. A man in his 30s, maybe a few years older than me. He smiled and said, "You coming back tomorrow?" I didn't know what to say. But my mouth said, "Yeah." It wasn't a lie. That night, I felt something different. Not peace. Not joy. But belonging. A quiet warmth in the chest. The kind you don't get from a high, or a drink, or a pill. The kind that stays. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in my skin. One of the biggest illusions I carried into recovery was this idea that if I just worked hard enough, stayed focused, kept clean, I could control everything: my emotions, my triggers, my past, my future. But day 13 shattered that illusion. It started with a voicemail from my job, a position I hadn't technically lost, just abandoned during the relapse. The message was clear: they were letting me go. No drama, no judgment. Just business. They had to move on. I listened to it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand, but because a part of me thought if I heard it enough, I could somehow change it. Then came the spiral. You blew it. Again. This was your last shot. No one's going to hire you now. What's the point of staying clean if you're still losing everything? I paced the apartment, jaw clenched, fists tight. Rage boiled under my skin, not at them. At me. I wanted to break something. Throw something. Drink something. Because the lie of control is this: when life slips through your fingers, your brain screams to grab onto anything. And for years, the anything I grabbed was a substance. I stood in the kitchen, palms pressed to the counter, breathing like I'd run a mile. The old instinct was still there. Run. Numb. Erase. But something new showed up. A voice, quiet but firm, let it hurt. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't kind. But it was real. I let the job go. I let the shame hit. I let the fear wash over me like cold water. And then, when I didn't die from it, I made tea. I called my sponsor, hadn't done that since day 1. I told him everything. He didn't fix it. He just said, "You stayed clean through it. That's the win." I didn't believe him. Not completely. But part of me wanted to. Later that night I wrote on a post-it, "You are not in control. You are in recovery." I stuck it to the mirror. And maybe that was the first time I didn't see control slipping through my hands. I saw surrender. And I lived through it. Recovery isn't a clean break from the past. It's not like turning off a switch or walking through a door. It's a slow, painful stretch between 2 versions of yourself, the one you were, and the one you're trying to be. On day 14, I felt caught in that space. Like I was wearing a jacket that didn't fit anymore but couldn't take off yet. I wasn't using. I wasn't thriving. I was just there. Stuck in the middle. I spent most of the day restless. Couldn't sit still. Couldn't focus. I tried cleaning. Tried reading. Tried meditating. None of it worked. My skin felt too tight. My thoughts too loud. Around noon, I opened an old photo album I found tucked in a box under my bed. I don't even remember putting it there. The pictures hit me like a punch. Me at 16, smiling like I hadn't learned how to fake it yet. Me with friends I don't talk to anymore. Me holding a guitar I haven't touched in years. I barely recognized that version of myself. But I remembered how he felt. Hopeful. Curious. Scared. Unbroken. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I didn't. Instead, I asked out loud, "Where did he go?" And a part of me answered quietly, "He's still here." Buried under trauma. Under guilt. Under years of self-inflicted wreckage. But not gone. That night, I picked up the guitar. It was dusty, out of tune, but still whole, like me. I strummed clumsy chords. My fingers ached. But for 20 minutes, I was back in my body. Back in something honest. Not the old me. Not the new me. Just me. And that felt like a step. Recovery isn't becoming someone else. It's reclaiming the parts of you that addiction tried to erase. It's the long, aching walk home to yourself. And even if I didn't know exactly who I was becoming, on day 14, I knew who I wasn't anymore. And that mattered. By the 15th day, I had this quiet expectation building inside me, like I should be better by now. 2 weeks clean. 2 weeks of showing up, doing the work, feeling the feelings. I thought maybe I'd be fixed. Whatever that means. But that day reminded me, clean doesn't mean healed. And healing isn't a finish line. It's a process that doesn't care about timelines or round numbers. I woke up with a heaviness I couldn't name. Not sadness. Not anxiety. Just weight. Like my body remembered something my mind couldn't explain. I moved slow all morning. Made coffee but didn't drink it. Opened the window, then closed it again. Couldn't decide if I wanted fresh air or silence. I paced the apartment like a ghost. Everything felt off. That used to be the moment I'd use, not out of desperation, but out of habit. Because I couldn't handle the ambiguity. I couldn't sit with discomfort unless it had a name. And this? This was just fog. I texted my sister. Hey. Having a weird one. Not in danger. Just heavy. She replied with one word. Same. That made me smile. Not because she was struggling, but because I didn't feel alone. I didn't have to explain myself. I was just allowed to exist, unclear, unsteady, but still trying. Later, I went to the store. Nothing dramatic happened. But I saw a guy in the parking lot, slouched over the hood of a car, clearly using. And I felt a pang in my chest. Not envy. Not judgment. Just recognition. That was me. Not long ago. Still could be. But I kept walking. I bought groceries. Came home. Cooked dinner. Ate all of it. I didn't use. And when I crawled into bed, I reminded myself. You don't have to feel okay to stay clean. You don't have to be fixed to keep going. You just have to keep going. And for tonight, that was my version of peace. There's a grief in sobriety they don't always talk about, not just for the people you've hurt or the things you've lost, but for the version of you that didn't make it. The one who didn't know better. The one who kept choosing the wrong door because it was the only one that didn't lock from the inside. On day 16, that grief hit me out of nowhere. I was folding laundry. Simple, mundane. A shirt slipped from the pile and landed on the floor. I picked it up and just stared at it. It was the same one I wore the night of my last relapse. A soft gray hoodie, nothing special. But it held weight. Like it remembered the worst of me. I sat down on the floor, shirt in hand, and something cracked. It wasn't a dramatic breakdown. Just quiet sadness. The kind that creeps in around the edges when your guard is finally down. I thought about who I was that night. What I was running from. What I was trying to kill inside myself. And I felt sorry for him. Not in a pitying way. In a human way. That version of me, broken, high, alone, was still me. Still deserves compassion. Still deserves forgiveness. I couldn't keep pretending like that part of my life didn't count just because I'm trying to be better now. Grief isn't linear. It doesn't follow the rules. It shows up while you're making pasta or tying your shoes or folding a stupid hoodie. It reminds you that healing means letting go, but also honoring what you've survived. That afternoon, I lit a candle. Sat on the floor. Held the shirt like a goodbye letter. I said something out loud, just for myself. I'm sorry I left you there. I didn't know how to stay. And maybe that sounds strange. But it helped. Because in recovery, sometimes the only way forward is to stop and mourn the parts of you that didn't make it. And in that pause, I found a new kind of strength. Not the kind that pretends everything's okay, the kind that admits when it's not. And that's the kind that lasts. Not every day in recovery is dramatic. Some days don't come with breakthroughs or breakdowns. No panic attacks. No rushes of joy. No waves of grief. Just the quiet, uneventful rhythm of doing normal things. Day 17 was like that. Boring. Beautifully, painfully boring. I woke up, made the bed. Brushed my teeth. Answered a couple emails I'd been avoiding. I went to the grocery store and didn't linger in the liquor aisle. Didn't even notice it until I was already past it. That felt like progress. The cashier smiled and asked how my day was going. I said, "Good, thanks," and realized I meant it. Not amazing. Not life-changing. Just good. I got home, unpacked the groceries, made lunch, cleaned the kitchen, took out the trash, listened to a podcast, did laundry, watched the sky change from gray to gold through the window. It was the kind of day I used to destroy on purpose. Back then, silence felt like punishment. Stillness felt like failure. If things were calm, I'd stir up chaos just to feel something. Now, I'm learning that boredom is a kind of safety. I used to think peace would feel like fireworks. Like some huge, cinematic moment. But more and more, I'm realizing it feels like this: a warm cup of tea, clean socks, a full fridge, a full day without a crisis. I didn't cry. Didn't laugh out loud. Didn't write anything profound. But I stayed clean. I stayed present. I stayed in my life, not above it, not outside of it, not trying to escape it. And when I went to bed that night, I didn't replay the day looking for mistakes. I just whispered. That was enough. And for maybe the first time, I believed it. Recovery isn't just surviving the storms. It's learning how to live in the calm. Even when it's boring. Especially when it's boring. By day 18, something unexpected settled in, stillness that didn't feel like absence. Not a numb, hollow quiet, but a grounded one. Like all the noise had burned itself out, and now I could hear what was underneath. Me. Not the addict version. Not the liar, the runner, the ghost. Just me. Raw, unfinished, but real. I spent the morning journaling without needing to censor it. I wrote down what I feared most, not relapse, not shame, not even death. What I feared most was getting better, and not knowing what to do with the life that followed. Who am I if I'm not surviving chaos? That question haunted me more than any craving ever did. For so long, my identity was built around being broken. Being the one who struggled. Being in recovery became my entire story. But now, I was beginning to feel something shift. Like there was space for more. Like healing wasn't just about staying clean, it was about becoming someone new. Or maybe becoming someone I forgot. That afternoon, I walked a little farther than usual. No destination. Just movement. I passed the community center with a flyer taped to the door. Creative Writing Group, Thursdays, 6 p.m. Beginners Welcome. I stared at it for a long time. Writing saved me once. Before the drugs. Before everything. Words were the only place I felt safe, where I could be honest without judgment. I hadn't written anything creative in years. But something about that flyer felt like a door. Maybe not today. But soon. A future version of me might walk through it. That night, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel euphoric. I just felt ready. Not for everything. Not forever. Just ready to let go of the old story. Ready to stop narrating my life like I was stuck in a loop. Recovery wasn't the end. It was the foundation. And standing on it, I could finally see something that looked a lot like a beginning. On day 19, nothing remarkable happened, at least, not on the outside. I didn't hit a milestone. No one applauded. No miracle unfolded. But something did shift. Quietly. Deeply. Almost without permission. I caught myself smiling. Not forced. Not faked. Not for anyone else. I was standing in the kitchen, stirring pasta, a song playing low in the background, and I smiled. Not because life was perfect. It wasn't. I was still unemployed. Still making amends. Still navigating cravings and old wounds. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: ease. I wasn't chasing anything. I wasn't bracing for disaster. I wasn't ashamed of being alive. And that's when I knew I was changing. Not changed. Not cured. But changing. Like something inside me had stopped fighting the process and started trusting it. Like I was slowly becoming someone I wanted to know. I thought back to who I was just 3 weeks ago, face down in shame, lost in the aftermath of a relapse, terrified of starting over again. I hated myself then. Fully, brutally. I didn't think I deserved another chance. But now I could look at myself in the mirror and not flinch. I could go a full hour without thinking about substances. I could listen to music without spiraling into memory. I could make pasta and hum along to the radio and not feel like I was pretending. That's the miracle no one talks about, not the big moments, but the small ones. The normal ones. The ones that sneak up on you and remind you that healing isn't some grand awakening, it's tiny, ordinary victories. And those victories add up. That night, I wrote one sentence in my journal. I think I'm starting to like the person I'm becoming. And for once, I didn't doubt it. Day 20 didn't come with fireworks. No grand finale. No life-changing epiphany. Just a stillness I'd never known before. Not emptiness. Not numbness. Peace. Real peace. The kind that hums under the surface instead of screaming for attention. The kind that doesn't ask for proof. It just is. I woke up before the sun, the room washed in soft gray light. For once, I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't dread the day ahead. I just lay there, breathing. Not fighting. Not running. Just being. And in that silence, I felt it. The mind I thought I'd never have again. Calm. Present. Whole. I got up, made coffee, and sat by the window. Same ritual. But something had shifted. I no longer felt like I was performing recovery. I was living it. I thought about how far I'd come, not in numbers, not in clean days, but in presence. I could sit still. I could feel grief without being swallowed. I could make amends and not let the shame define me. I could talk to my sister without the weight of guilt pressing on every word. I could say, I'm sober today, and actually believe it meant something. I know chaos isn't gone. Life will happen. Triggers will come. Pain will visit. I may fall again. But I'm not afraid of that anymore. Because now, I know how to stand back up. I know how to ask for help. I know how to sit in the storm without trying to outdrink it. I know that healing doesn't mean I'll never hurt, it means I won't disappear when I do. And that's everything. I lit a candle, the same one from day one. Watched the flame flicker and thought. I survived the noise. I lived through the dark. I found the quiet on the other side. A quiet mind. After chaos. Not a finish line. A beginning.